Welcome to a fresh episode of the latest tech news. We've got iPhone 12 design leaks. Samsung are going all out with the selfie camera on the S21. Yes, about a year away. And first, the fastest charging ever found in a smartphone. Lenovo certainly aren't a big name when it comes to smartphones really, although they do usually produce one phone per year that is a totally spec'd out monster, and they're doing the same again this year. So details about Lenovo Legion, which is obviously going to be a gaming phone from them and a complete monster when it comes to the specs sheet. We currently have 65 watt fast charging in phones. We know companies are working on 100 watt charging too, but 90 watt is a huge jump from 65, especially in a smartphone that should be coming to market very soon. Other specs we don't know, but watch out for it. 90 watt fast charging in a smartphone. The Google Phone app, which is preloaded onto Google Pixel phones and used as the native phone application on those phones, can now be used with some other Android phones. Before, you couldn't use it with other Android phones, but now it is on the App Store. So if you do have an Android phone, you can go to the Play Store and search for the Google Phone app, and apparently it can be loaded onto a bunch of Android phones at the moment. Samsung and OnePlus phones can't get it though. Apparently this is because the app needs access to the dialer's shared library, which isn't present on OnePlus and Samsung phones. No luck if you've got those, but if you want to check it out, go to the Play Store and search for the Google Phone app. It's been a while since we've seen a proper challenger in the flagship realm from Motorola, but we're getting one very soon, confirmed officially by them. A phone coming on the 22nd of April. Motorola have posted this teaser, so we know we're getting the phone, and this is suspected to be the Motorola Edge Plus that has been rumored for a while now. This apparently will have a 90-degree curve on the edges. So that is not a curved display, that is a waterfall display. I've used a couple of waterfall display smartphones already, the Mate 30 Pro and also the Vivo Next 3. Waterfall displays are absolutely stunning. They look amazing. It gives you such a bezel-less design. However, not everyone likes them or wants to go for them. There's certainly some issues with just general usability of those glass edges. We're getting the Motorola Edge Plus, which is the flagship phone, and the Motorola Edge, which should be the mid-ranger, a very similar phone, but obviously some mid-range specs, so probably take away the very expensive waterfall display. Also, that's tipped to come with a Snapdragon 765G processor, which is the brand new mid-range 5G chipset from Snapdragon. It's definitely good enough for most users for sure. I've used a couple of phones with that chipset. It's definitely powerful enough for normal usage. If you are a gamer though, you do enjoy gaming and you want the best gaming experience, that chipset does have some drawbacks. You can't play PUBG, for example, in the very highest settings or in the highest refresh rate settings. So there are some limitations to that chipset, but for normal users, it's perfectly powerful enough. The Motorola Edge specs consist of a 6.67-inch Full HD Plus resolution display. You've got that waterfall curve on the sides. Apparently, it will also have a 90Hz refresh rate screen, which is definitely another good spec. 5,000 mAh battery, which is also very big, powering that display, and the Snapdragon 865 processor. So this is a fully spec'd out flagship phone. The camera specs apparently will be a 108 megapixel main image sensor. Again, that's not going to be beaten. There's only two other brands that are using that. Samsung with their own HM1 sensor and Xiaomi using a 108 megapixel image sensor made by Samsung called the HMX. They're both made by Samsung, but they're slightly different. The slightly more expensive and higher quality HM1 that Samsung uses has 9:1 pixel binning, so it takes 12 megapixel images. Whereas the one that Xiaomi uses 4:1 pixel binning and has 27 megapixel images. We don't really know which sensor the Motorola Edge Plus will be using, but it has to be one of those two. The 16 megapixel will be an ultra wide, the 8 megapixel will be a zoom camera. So overall, a really functional camera, a flagship type of screen, 90Hz refresh rates, big battery, and the flagship processor. It's a really good looking phone, especially on the spec sheet. That will come in the States as the Moto Edge and Edge Plus, and in other markets may be coming as the Moto One under that brand. But anyway, April 22nd, it's coming, so look out for it. Amazon has put new food delivery service customers on hold. So this is Amazon Fresh and Whole Foods Delivery, which is now owned by Amazon. They have just seen an influx of customers, and there are just too many customers and orders to fulfill right now. The company said it will hire another 75,000 key workers. That is on top of the 100,000 that they're already planning to hire to fulfill all these new orders. They say that they're increasing capacity each week, and in the coming days, they will introduce a waiting line system. So you can go online and be part of the waiting line to actually get an account and get all of these orders delivered to you. Right now, we know there's just so many orders they can't fulfill for obvious reasons, but they say they are working to get deliveries out on time. So unbelievably, we are getting a ton of Galaxy S21 rumors right now. The S20 series has only just launched. We're getting the Note 20 series next, although we know a lot about that already. Samsung are making decisions about the selfie camera that will be going into the Galaxy S21. And either way you look at it, it's actually really good and really exciting as to what they'll be doing. So we had the earlier leaking information that Samsung are considering using an under-screen camera in the Galaxy S21 series. And that's a really big deal because it's the first time that we'll see it in a commercial product. Not only is this tech coming, but it is Samsung's, and they are maybe thinking of being the first manufacturer to give us that tech. The tech is very close now, but Samsung have to make the decision whether to go with it or whether to keep with the cutout camera and also improve the quality of the camera. Samsung's end goal is to have a completely bezel-less display without any cutouts or bezels whatsoever, and have a quad curved display to make a completely uninterrupted smartphone experience. Samsung at the moment are exploring two options. The first is an under-display camera. That is a camera placed under the screen and the screen is on top, so you cannot see the camera whatsoever. The second is just a much enhanced camera system for that selfie camera. The much improved camera system, unsurprisingly, would mean a more expensive and also much bigger camera sensor for their selfie camera. The benefit of this, of course, means better low light photography, but also just more natural looking shots, better colors overall, just a higher quality image that would be much more like what we get from the back cameras. Samsung has already moved to a 40 megapixel higher quality camera sensor in the S20 Ultra. That is different to the camera sensors found in the S20 and S20 Plus. But most importantly, the leak actually suggests that Samsung are looking at putting optical image stabilization on their selfie camera. And to my recollection, this would be the first and only time that would ever have been done. Adding OIS would mean no more shaky camera shots on the selfie camera, and it would help both photo and video. They are apparently exploring two different types of sensor. The first is a 1/2 inch sensor, which is much bigger comparatively to what we get at the moment. And the other is a 1/2.55 inch sensor with optical image stabilization. It would definitely be a big selling point to have optical image stabilization on a selfie camera, or even using a much bigger sensor and being able to crop in further without losing detail and adding better electronic image stabilization. As a point of reference, the S20 and S20 Plus use 1/3.2 inch sensors, so using a 1/2 inch sensor would be massive in comparison. The S20 Ultra, as I said, uses a more expensive sensor and a bigger sensor at 1/2.65 inches, so all of the new sensors that they're testing out are bigger than anything we get right now. The big iPhone news is that it looks almost certain now that the iPhone 12 series, or at least the Pro models, the more expensive models, will be getting a redesign and getting the flat edges just like we saw in the iPhone 4 and 4S and the 5 series, and now like what we get in the Pro iPad series. So yeah, a big redesign for the iPhone this year. This is based off an article from Mark Gurman for Bloomberg, who has basically confirmed now that we're getting those redesigns. Plus, he gave us loads of information about other products that should be coming from Apple. At least the two Pro models having that squared off design, and maybe the non-Pro models he didn't mention, but maybe keeping a different design to differentiate them. We see Apple moving all their Pro products, like the Pro iPads, to this squared off design, so maybe that's something they're keeping for the Pro models of all their products. Also confirming a rumor that we heard about a smaller notch in the iPhones, again at least in the Pro versions, so a higher screen to body ratio and a more modern design for at least the Pro model iPhones. He also mentioned that in the coming years, Apple wants to get rid of the notch completely. This is an obvious thing. No one wants a notch. We're moving to under-screen technology. Again, Samsung using this sort of stuff, and we'll be putting it into phones as soon as they can. So all of this can be put under the screen as and when Apple, I'm sure, will do it. The The top end iPhone getting a bigger screen, so anywhere up to 6.7 inches for that one. That's going to be a big phone. And also confirming other rumors that we're getting a LiDAR sensor, at least in the Pro models. LiDAR is essentially a high-end depth sensing device. We get a lot of depth sensors in other phones. It is usually used mostly for AR applications to sense depth and give you more accurate readings like that, but it can also be used for the cameras in general, just to give better portrait effects and other things like that. I reported yesterday that another analyst said that we might get some delays for the iPhone 12 series, especially the Pro models, because they're using some new hardware, and Mark Gurman also confirms that it may be a couple of weeks or so delay after what Apple were originally planning. Also, Apple may be moving away from the 2.5D curved glass that we've had in iPhones for years now, making a really lovely curved edge to the phone. If the Pro models have squared edges like the iPad Pro, then we might be getting no curves to the glass at all. But anyway, moving on, we got news on a different HomePod device, a smaller, cheaper version of Apple's HomePod, which is definitely a good thing because that thing was terribly expensive. And I guess Apple are trying to compete with Amazon and Google here, who offer much cheaper versions and, to be honest, better, at least more useful voice assistants too. AirTags were also confirmed in the report by Bloomberg and Mark Gurman to be coming very soon. These will apparently be coming with a leather sleeve and a keychain, just confirming the fact that this is just going to go on your keys. Although, to be honest, here in Shenzhen, there are so many companies that make the electronic door handles where you just scan your fingerprint. It has an optical image sensor, just like we get in smartphones. On the door, you can put your fingerprint on and unlocks it. So the useful life for keys is definitely diminishing. I think that is a much better thing to have than these iron things that you're going to lose and have to put AirTags on.